Hi there, welcome to Canyons Church Online. It's no accident that you're here today, and we believe God has something special for you. Our heart is to create a space where you can grow in your faith, find encouragement, and connect with others, even if it's online. Feel free to grab your coffee, settle in, and take this time to focus on what God has for you. And if you have a question or need prayer, we're just a click away. Thanks for being part of our online family. Let's jump in.
Well, happy Mother's Day. We are jumping into week 3 of our Anxious for Nothing series. And I just want to start with this. A happy Mother's Day to all the moms here. It's nice that after being responsible for 100% of the population, we can give you a day. Really half a day. As I think about it, it's more like a meal, okay, that we're going to give you. But we still need you to tell us where everything is in the kitchen, if that's okay. We would have made a reservation, but we kind of forgot until yesterday, and we knew you didn't want Taco Bell again. So, that's what we are giving you today. So happy Mother's Day. I am grateful for my own mother, but for most of my life, I was just very entitled to her care and attention. But my wife, on the other hand, I have been keenly aware of all the major adjustments that she's had to make for our kids, because I knew her before we ever had children. See, when I entered the world, my parents, they already had 2 other kids. I didn't see any adjustments that they made, and so I just took it for granted, right? For everybody who grew up with a mom and dad, you're like, you just take it for granted. But with Jen, I remember the olden days. I remember when we would just say spontaneously, do you want to go get something to eat? And it wasn't a whole song and dance. Or when we would eat, it was 20 minutes of sitting down with food in front of us, not 90 minutes of negotiating, coercing, cleaning, crying. And that's just on our end, right? I remember the good old days when we'd say, do you want to stay up after 9 p.m.? And it wasn't a big deal. They're like, but we're going to be so tired for the next 3 weeks. I remember all that. So when all of a sudden we have a child and that enters into the world, I've seen the adjustment that she's had to make, and I am convinced that motherhood is a sacred calling. It's just incredible about how selfless moms, and honestly, all women are. Because in the middle of the night, you'll hear in the cool darkness of the evening, "Mama, Mama," and she just springs out of bed and she goes and takes care of it. I, on the other hand, when I hear that same thing, I channel my inner Ivan Drago, right? If he dies, he dies, right? That's what's going to happen after this point. And so here's the thing, and this is kind of a weird thing, but after almost 8 years of having little children in the home, my wife is on occasion starting to hear what I call the phantom call for help, where it's you think you hear is that a child crying? And she'll spring out of bed and she'll run into another room. And that's not the weirdest thing, right? It happens. But she goes in, and when she discovers that our youngest, Timothy, is not actually calling out for her, here's where it gets weird. She gets him up anyway. She just takes him back to bed. And if she has a hard time sleeping, she's just you know what, I'm going to get Timothy up and I'll pass the time that way. She's been doing this really weird thing where she insists on bringing Timothy with dates, on dates with us. And if there's a lull in the conversation, she'll start patting his belly to see if he responds to anything. She brings him to bed. It's the last thing she touches every night, and it's the first thing that she grabs in the morning is her own child. Now, okay, obviously I'm kidding a little bit about that. I'll let you decide what parts of that were true and which ones are not. That would be very weird for a child. But isn't that the same relationship that we all have with our devices right now? It's the first thing that we grab. It's the last thing that we touch before we go to sleep. If there's any boring moment in our day, we pull it out. And I know I'm yelling at the clouds again for those who were here last week. But here is my fear with phone culture. And here's how it connects with anxiety. The average person is on their phone 4 to 6 hours a day. And that is not the high end. That is the average. We send and receive almost 3 times the amount of text messages that we did 10 years ago. We get 4 to 5 times the notifications that we got 10 years ago. Have you forgotten your phone somewhere recently? and you felt panic until like you were reunited with your device, right? Like you know that feeling that I'm talking about? There are so many studies that are linking our anxiety and our mental health challenges to our device usage, and yet we've all said collectively, myself included, well, there's nothing we can do about that. And here's where my fear starts to crystallize. That there is an expectation that we live with today, that we respond to every message, regardless of its urgency, regardless of who sent it. You get that buzz, that ding, that push, and you immediately feel like I am chained to this until I close the loop. Do you ever think about the old days and get a little sentimental when somebody could call your house and if you weren't there, they just had to try again later? Or like if you had an answering machine, there's just this expectation, I'll call them back in a day or two. Or this is really magical. Guys, for those of you who are under the age of 30, let me tell you, there was a time before cell phones when somebody called you, if you were on vacation, you just didn't get back to them for like 2 weeks. It was incredible. But we, in this day and age, we are chained to our devices. And the thing is, because they make us more efficient, because you can run whole businesses on the go, because you can like capture memories that are going to last for decades on end, we've all said, no, there's nothing that we're going to do to change this. And I'm not trying to convince you to like get rid of your phones. What I'm saying though is that we should ask the question, what is the toll to being chained to every single moment in our life doing to us? Like when we feel chained to every ding, every push, every buzz, when we don't feel like we can ever actually let go, what is that doing to us? All right, a few weeks back, it was Easter. And when we got done here with the egg hunts and everything else that was happening that day, we went down to the South Bay to see some of Jen's family, and we passed that point in the day where it made sense to go home and like make a meal. So we promised our kids that we would take them out to dinner. So we hop in the car and we drive the 25 minutes back north, and Jen and I have been talking, we're like, we really feel like we should eat something a little bit healthier today. So we decided to go to Urbane Cafe. Love that place. It is great. So we pull up into the parking lot and we hop out and we walk up to the door, and lo and behold, Urbane Cafe had the audacity to be closed on Easter. I turned to Jen and said, if I have to work today, they should have to work, right? So we're like, okay, we don't have enough time to go to a different part of the city. We need to find something that's close, something that's going to create like very little drama that everybody's going to eat. And so somebody had the idea, I don't remember who, it doesn't really matter, that there was a Taco Bell around the corner. And that same person lived on Taco Bell until his late 20s, and he has forgotten that he is now in an abusive relationship with Taco Bell. That as much as he remembers the good times with Taco Bell does not love him back, right? Like, it is an abusive partner, and he just is convinced that he can change Taco Bell over time, but it's just never going to work out, you know what I'm talking about? And so the problem with going to Taco Bell instead of Urbane Cafe is that's the equivalent of saying, you know what, instead of a salad, why don't we take methamphetamines tonight, right? Like, so between the hours of like 6:30 and 8:15, I consumed like 1,600 calories. And then about 5 hours later, I was reminded of this. As I laid in bed that night, completely unable to sleep, I had this very obvious realization hit me like a ton of bricks. Unhealthy habits make you unhealthy. Right? Like it's like, well, yeah, that's obvious, Matt. And the thing is, if you remember math class, when you have like your different, sides of the formula and you just cancel out the redundancies, like here's another way to think about this. Habits make you. You are the decisions you make. You are the habits that you keep. And right now, as a society, we're like a car that's racing down the freeway in second gear, trying to go 85 miles per hour. Our RPMs are redlining. Our engine is starting to smoke. And our phones, that's just emblematic of a much bigger problem, that we refuse to slow down. we refuse to take a break. The problem is that we can never escape the urgent parts of our lives. There is no rest. Our cognitive loads are high, and it's not getting any better. And the thing is, God did not design you to run with high RPMs nonstop. Unhealthy habits make you unhealthy. See, as we continue our series on God's plan to help us reduce some of the anxieties in our life, one of the things that we might need to confront today is that maybe some of our habits, maybe some of our routines, maybe some of our rhythms are putting us in a position of feeling completely helpless. Today, I want to tell you the story of one of the coolest guys in the Bible. It's recorded in this Old Testament book called 1 Kings. If you want to pull that up, you can look it up in the first third of your Bible with me. And there's this guy in this story by the name of Elijah. And he is like the John McClane of the Old Testament. Do you guys remember in Die Hard when John McClane defeated all the terrorists by himself? That is Elijah. And in 1 Kings 19, we see Elijah right after his Nakatomi Tower moment. Right? That's another Die Hard reference, by the way. So what happens, this is so cool, is that there are these two evil kings and queens of Israel. And they are staunchly anti-God, and they have led the people in that direction. And it's so bad that God taps Elijah on the shoulder and says, "You're going to be my mouthpiece. You're going to speak on my behalf. And so what I want you to do is I want you to pray to close up the sky." In a way of, we're creating a drought. And the reason why is you can imagine that in that day and age, to have no water fall from the sky would completely decimate your economy. It would put you into a famine. A drought was a big deal. Your livestock would start to die off. Pestilence and disease would start to seep through. And in a world that is not anti-supernatural, they see this as my God versus your God, and oh my goodness, your God is being a total jerk right now. That's how they saw this. And so Elijah, having this incredible moment, he finally is told by God, we're going to end this. We're going to get this back. And so he calls a challenge. He says, my prophets, or me versus your prophets. And so 850 prophets of false gods, they come together on Mount Carmel. And here is the challenge. We have two altars. And the first prophet to be able to light the sacrifice on fire, without using matches, without using flint, without, bringing a candle nearby, whatever. I don't know how they made fire back then. But here's the first one to create fire. Will prove who the supreme deity is. And so those 850 prophets of the false gods, they cut themselves, they cry out, they pray, they do everything they can, calling out to their false gods, and nothing happens. And Elijah, in this really cool moment, not only calls fire down, but before that, he pours water all over the sacrifice. If you've never read this story, you should read it. It's incredible. And it's so impressive, and it makes such a big difference that Elijah and all the people who've gathered to watch this, they turn and they actually kill 450 of those 850 prophets. The king witnesses the whole thing, and then water starts to fall from the sky again as Elijah prays for rain, and the rain finally starts to come. And you can imagine, after something like this, your reaction should feel like you just won Game 7 of the World Series. You should feel like you're on top of the world, that everything you've been working towards has finally come to fruition. But that's not what happens. In 1 Kings 19, this is what it says. So Jezebel sent this message to Elijah. May the gods strike me and even kill me, if by this time tomorrow I have not killed you as you killed them. And Elijah was afraid, and he fled for his life. He went to Beersheba, a town in Judah, and he left his servant there. Then he went on alone into the wilderness, traveling all day. He sat down under a solitary broom tree, and he prayed that he might die. I've had enough, Lord, he said. Take my life, for I am no better than my ancestors who have already died. The queen has said, if I'm still alive tomorrow, he needs to be dead. And so what does he do? He doesn't stand back up to her. He doesn't say, no, let's get all the people who helped me defeat those other prophets and let's go storm the palace. He says, whoa, and he runs away. And he gets into the wilderness, and I love that the Bible records this. He sits under the broom tree, and he says, God, can you please just kill me? I'm tired. I'm done with this. I don't want anything else to do with this. And I love that the Bible records this because maybe you're like me, and that invasive thought has come into your head at least once as well, of man, it would just be so much better if I just wasn't here. Like it would be so much easier if I just died. And I want to just point out the obvious. If somebody's like super tough and like this guy who can stand up to the powers that be and speak truth and all, if he can struggle with that same thought, don't think you're a weirdo if you've been in that same place as well. And here's the thing I just want to say that. It's not that you have the thought that's the problem, it's what you do with it. And here's what I want you to know, is that a bad season doesn't mean a bad life. That God loves you, that God has a plan and a purpose for you, that suicide is a permanent solution, usually to a temporary problem. And there are people who want to stand alongside you and help you, and no matter what you're going through, it can't be that bad that is the right solution. So if you struggle with those thoughts and you need some help, come talk to us. Let's point you in the right direction. Let's help you get through this. But I love that the Bible is honest about this, that there are people that are going to have these thoughts. And if you've had those thoughts creep into your mind, maybe the question to ask is, what has led me to this moment? And for Elijah, we have a lot about his life recorded. And you know what we don't have? Is we don't have, an Elijah who was in the middle of like some terrible decisions and just deep into sin, and that's what led to this. No. Elijah was the mouthpiece of God. Elijah was doing everything that God had told him to do. Elijah was doing the right things for the right reasons, and he still reached this point of burnout. So you can imagine, if doing the right thing for the right reasons can lead you to a place of burnout, what can doing the wrong things for the right reasons or the right things for the wrong reasons, like how much faster can that get you there? And here's the thing I want you to see. You were not meant, and you were not designed to run 24/7, 365. If the right things burn you out, well, you're not weird if you get to that point. And maybe you're at that place where you've been momming hard, right? You've got your kids and it just feels like you are at your wit's end, and you're not doing this for selfish reasons, obviously, but you're just at this place where you're like, I am so tired. Or maybe you're providing for your family, and it's just like your job just never seems to give you a break. And it's hard. And you're like, I don't think I can keep going. Or maybe you're volunteering, not just here, but like 2 or 3 other places. And you are at this place of, I'm ready to like just completely break down. Here's what happens to Elijah. It says in verse 5, then he lay down and slept under the broom tree, but as he was sleeping, an angel touched him and told him, get up and eat. You know, guys, sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is to take a nap and eat a snack. I say that somewhat in jest, but I'm actually not kidding. And the thing is, it's not that God is speaking to Elijah through the nap and through the snack, although I feel like I've had some desserts in my life where I'm like, man, I really feel like God is in the room right now, right? Like, it's not that God is speaking through that the way that he would speak through prayer or through studying the Bible. But here is the power of rest in our lives. Rest opens you up to see the world clearly again. The Bible talks about this concept on occasion that they use the term sober-mindedness. And sober-mindedness, it has something to do with alcohol, because obviously, like, if you drink, you're not going to be sober. But, like, really, what's the danger in being inebriated? Well, you're not thinking clearly. You make decisions that you regret. Yeah, you're not necessarily using your right mind in those moments. And here's the thing, is that it's not just alcohol that can put you in a position and a state of not making the right decisions. See, when your RPMs are redlining, you are liable to make some of the worst decisions of your life. Have you ever had like a really long day and you snapped at somebody and you said something that you had to go back and just apologize for later? Like, what is that? Well, you're not being sober-minded. Like, there's some reason that you're not thinking clearly. That rest, it opens us up to hear clearly from God again. And maybe you're in a place where like, I don't want to die, but I would love to be just really sick, like sick enough just to cancel all my plans and like nobody want or expect anything from me. When was the last time you had an honest-to-God slow season where you had a whole series of days where you're like, man, we just didn't really have much to do? When was the last time that you went to bed a little bit more energized and refreshed than you woke up that morning because you just had a really good day where you didn't have to push so hard? See, we live, though, in a time when our society has told us, you need to be more. You need to do more. You need to produce. You need to be on call. Whenever somebody sends you any message, you need to respond instantly. We live with our RPMs in the red, exhausted, frenzied, so tired, anxious, overtaxed, and overwhelmed. And you may be surprised to hear this, but God takes rest seriously. I mean, there are a lot of verses in the Bible about the importance of rest in our lives. And here's how sick we are, is that we've taken a lot of those verses and we're like, we're going to interpret these a little symbolically. So like, we need to rest in the Lord, which we give an interpretation of, yeah, you just need to do more, but just like trust God while you're doing it. And maybe, just maybe, like God actually wants you to rest. In Exodus chapter 20, we have the 10 Commandments. And here's the context of this. Like, the Israelites have just gotten out of 400 years of slavery. They're in the wilderness, and God's like, how are we going to operate this society? Let's go ahead and let's put some rules together. And so he talks about you shouldn't murder, you shouldn't lie, you shouldn't commit adultery. And then in the middle of all this, we get the very fourth commandment of Exodus chapter 20, verse 8. It says, remember to observe the Sabbath day and keeping it holy. Okay, what is the Sabbath? Well, he explains. He says, you have 6 days each week for your ordinary work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath day of rest, dedicated to the Lord your God. On that day, no one in your household may do any work. And then look at these next 3 words. This includes you. 6 days to work, then you take a day off. No one is going to work, and this includes you. Have you ever had to send an email or text message where you just had to like assure the person on the receiving end, no, this actually is coming from me, okay? Like, don't just completely disregard this. I love that God put this in here. You need to take a break, and this includes you. And the reason why I feel like this is so important is because we think oftentimes, yes, people should take some time off. They should, but not me. I've got so much to do. And that what happens is we shouldn't work, we shouldn't overschedule ourselves, we should take the necessary time off. And he keeps explaining, he keeps going, says, this includes you, your sons and daughters, your male and female servants, your livestock, and any foreigners living among you. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens, the earth, the sea, and everything in them. But on the seventh day he rested. And that is why the Lord blessed the Sabbath day, and he set it apart as holy. This is supposed to include everybody in your household. And the thing is, like, he roots this, not just, hey, I had a great idea. He roots this back in creation. That if you read the creation account in Genesis, you see that over 6 days, he creates all of existence, and then on the seventh day, he rests. And just to be clear, it's not that God needed some time off. It wasn't like, I'm so tired from putting everything together, so I'm just going to sit here for a while. You guys do your thing. No. Like, he does this because that's how important rest is to God. That he models it for us. He roots it in creation, almost to say, Guys, this isn't optional. This isn't going to be something I need you to talk yourself out of. This predates everything else. You need to rest. This includes you. Here's God's rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Rest. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Rest. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Rest. And the Sabbath, it shows back up in the New Testament. And if you've read through the story of Jesus, you know that there's this whole group of people that they loved the law, but they really didn't like God as much as they liked the law. And so when Jesus is there and he starts doing a few things on the Sabbath, like healing somebody over the course of 30 seconds on a Sabbath day, they kind of freak out at him, like, oh, you're not honoring the Sabbath. And here's an insight that Jesus gives us that I want you to think about. The Sabbath, resting, is not our gift to God. The Sabbath is God's gift to us.
Yep.
And who are we to say, you know what, God? Don't need it. Push it aside. That's not really going to work. You can't run 24/7, 365. And God makes sure that we don't. You can imagine how necessary a law like this would have been for a group of people who had just come out of slavery, because they had been working 24/7, 365, nonstop for 400 years. And that same muscle memory was going to manifest itself in their new country as well. And the thing is, several thousand years later, we're in the same boat. Because you know why we don't take time off? Because I need that time. I have things to do. I want to get ahead. I've got reasons that I need to, keep my schedule packed in. And here is the question that we should kind of wrestle with. Can God bless you more with 6 days than you can bless yourself with 7? Do you trust your ability to create and produce more than God's ability to create and produce in you? We have a core value here called audacious faith, and the question that we test ourselves with is, am I trusting in my logic or my feelings, or am I trusting in God? And I feel like this is one of the frontline issues. Do I trust God enough that I'm willing to take a step back and rest? Or do I think it all kind of relies on me, and I need to keep pushing and keep going because people are depending on me? For my Bible nerds in the room, you might be surprised to find out that there's this whole period of time called the Babylonian exile, where for 70 years, the Israelites were taken out of Israel and they're put into captivity in Babylon. And you know what the reason why 70 years was prescribed? It's because God had written into the law that not only was there a 7-day-a-week rhythm, there was a 7-year rhythm, where on the 7th year, you were supposed to give your fields a break so that the nutrients could replenish themselves. And the reason why they settled on 70 days for exile, this is God speaking, is because they had violated that. They said, we're not actually going to take that year off. And the reason why is because we think that we can bless ourselves more by planting on that 7th year than by trusting that God will replenish the land and continue to produce. And so God said, all right, fine, if you're not going to rest, I'm going to force you to rest. Okay, yes, this is the Old Testament we're talking about. We're not under the Old Testament law, for the Bible nerds still in the room. But within the New Testament, the new covenant that we're in, yeah, it might be a little bit different of a relationship that we have with the Sabbath, that it might not be the same as murder or adultery, but I believe that violating God's rhythm still has consequences, and it is killing us. Pete, can I borrow your phone? I left mine backstage, and it was the one thing I was not supposed to do today. I got this from another pastor in Texas that named Josh Howerton, and I had to confirm some of his numbers because it was so incredible of a thing, but bear with me. So there's this group out here called the Seventh-day Adventists, and if you don't know anything about them, you can surmise everything you need to know based on the name, all right? So they really love the Sabbath. They are all about the Sabbath. And here is the crazy thing, is there are studies that suggest that they live 11 years longer on average than the average American. 11 years. Now, the average American lives 77 years, and I want you to see this. Okay, so the average American lives 77 years. How many days is that? It is 28,105 days. Okay, well, how many Sabbaths would be part of these 28,105 days? All right, well, let's divide by 7. Okay, so there's 4,015 Sabbaths. Why do we not take a day off every week? Well, it's because I got things to do. There's this thought of like, well, if I don't produce on these days, I'm never getting that time back. It's not like this is going to prolong my life. Really, this is the thought that we have. Well, how many years is 4,015 days? It's 11 years exactly. Now, whether it's exactly that, well, actually, their lifespans are... Hey, okay, bear with me for a second. Here is the accusation that most of us make. I need that time. It's so important. I've got things to do. I can't slow down. And here's this group. And we're not Seventh-day Adventists for a reason, okay? But there's this group. But we're going to take this seriously. And you can almost just sense it. God's saying, no, I'll make sure you get that time back. So Elijah's journey continues. It says this in 1 Kings 8:19-8. So he's taken his nap. He's had a snack. It says, so he got up, he ate and drank, and the food gave him enough strength to travel for 40 days and 40 nights to Mount Sinai, the mountain of God. And there he came to a cave where he spent the night. But the Lord said to him, what are you doing, Elijah? He's depleted. He's tired. God gives him food. He gives him rest. And he says, I'm going to send you on a journey for 40 days and 40 nights. You're going to travel to Mount Sinai. All right? So he's gotten all the way back there. Now, a couple observations on this. The first is, there are times where you're in a really hard season, and God's going to give you the supernatural strength to get through it. In fact, there's times when I look back and I ask, man, that was so hard, that was so difficult. How did I get through this? And I believe that God is the reason why. He gets us through difficult seasons. In fact, there's this beautiful sentiment in Isaiah 40 that says, but those who trust in the Lord will find new strength. They will soar high on wings like eagles. They'll run and not grow weary. They'll walk and not faint. And when you're going through a hard season, it's good to remember God is good. He's on your side. He has power. He has a plan. He's never going to lead you where he doesn't want you to go. But here's my second observation. When we burn out, we often think the solution is I need more energy. I need more motivation. And what we do is we say, it's not my pace that is the issue. It's not that I need to slow down. We just think, I just need God to just give me more. And after God gives Elijah the energy to travel for 40 days and 40 nights, and he gets to the cave on Mount Sinai, here is the question. What are you doing here, Elijah? Elijah's root problem was not solved in just needing to be more. He didn't just need to do more or have more or be more. And your problem is probably not that you just need more. And Elijah replied, I have zealously served the Lord God Almighty, but the people of Israel have broken their covenant with you, and they've torn down your altars, and they killed every one of your prophets. I am the only one left, and now they're trying to kill me too. Go out, stand before me on the mountain, the Lord told him. See, when you're burnt out, you're going to find it's not only anxiety that you feel, but you're going to feel alone. You're going to feel isolated. Even after one of the greatest seasons of your life, you're going to feel like, I am the only one who cares. Have you been there? Have you felt that? And so for Elijah, this is what God does. He says, go and stand before me on the mountain. The Lord told him, and as Elijah stood there, the Lord passed by, and a mighty windstorm hit the mountain. It was such a terrible blast that the rocks were torn loose, but the Lord was not in the wind. And after a wind, there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, there was a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, there was a sound of a gentle whisper. I'm guessing that Elijah felt in this moment, I have all these problems. I am completely alone. Nobody wants to stand on my side. I have armies coming after me. I have kings and queens who are wishing my demise. I've proven myself, and it hasn't solved anything. And I'm just kind of guessing that Elijah was in that place that day thinking, I need God to dramatically do something to fix all of my problems. And there was a mighty windstorm. It tore the rocks loose off of the side of the mountain, and God wasn't in it. There was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. There was a fire, and the Lord was not in the fire. But then there was a gentle whisper. We want God to do the dramatic. Of God, my problem is, I need more money. God, my problem is, I need a spouse. God, my problem is, I need you to come through and make my boss more understanding. We want the dramatic. But more often than not, God's not in the dramatic. He's often in that gentle whisper. And here's the thing, you can just feel and hear just the pace and the narrative just completely change. It's go, 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 go. Quiet. Here's why rest is so important. Rest opens you up to hear God's gentle whisper. Now, how does this work? One of Jesus' half-brothers, a guy by the name of James, who became the pastor of the church in Jerusalem until Jerusalem was destroyed and Christians started being persecuted. But he writes in James 4:8, come close to God and God will come close to you. Yeah, we are supposed to rest, and we are supposed to rest in God. And how do we do this? We come close to God and he will come close to you. And then the verse says, wash your hands, you sinners, purify your hearts, for your loyalty is divided between God and the world. And this kind of connects back to what we talked about in the first week of this series, of who's behind the steering wheel of your life. Who is driving? Who do you look to for security, hope? And often when you have anything other than God behind that driver's seat, it leaves you in a place of feeling anxious and frustrated. And here is one of the worst parts, is those false gods that sit behind the wheel. They often tell you, just go a little bit faster. Keep working a little bit harder. Keep doing a little bit more. And what I want to encourage you is often what happens is we go, 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 go until the engine seems to explode. And then we say, nope, I'm out of everything at this point. I quit everything. And what I want to encourage you to do is don't quit. What you want to do is you want to rest and then be able to re-engage. And maybe you're at a place where you are burnt out like Elijah, and you just want to quit on everything. You're like, I'm done with my calling. I'm done with my job. I'm done maybe with my life. But here's the thing, quitting is only smart if you're doing the wrong things. If you're doing the right things, quitting will honestly just kind of make some of those things worse. It's like saying, man, I got all these financial struggles, and my job just makes me feel even more overwhelmed. I'm just going to quit my job. It's like, well, but that's part of the way that you're going to get out of this, right? Like, there's so many things that you are doing in your life that are good, and just to say, no, I'm getting away from this can be problematic. What you want to do is aim to rest and keep doing the right things. And here's what happens to Elijah. After this gentle whisper, God tells him specifically, I want you to go out and I want you to tap two more people to be on the shoulder, to be one the king of Aram and the other one to be the king of Israel. And then I want you to go and I want you to find the person who's going to be your predecessor, the one who's going to be your successor, Elisha. He is going to walk alongside you and he is going to help lessen your load. And so many times it's when we rest that we hear God's gentle whisper, and then we start to understand that no, it's the people that I want to just push out of my life that honestly are going to be the ones who are probably going to pull me back into a place of help. We need God and we need other people. And yet when we're in seasons of burnout, we often want to quit on both of those things. And what we do is we want to try and fill the void with the counterfeits of alcohol, escapism, TV, food, whatever your vice is. That's what we often turn to in the moments where we just need to rest and put God to the test. Can God bless you more in 6 than you can bless yourself with 7? I believe for a lot of the people in this room, God is calling you to rest. I just want you to think about this for a second. What would it look like if for the next 3 months you took this seriously? And I'm not talking about getting legalistic about well, it needs to be on Saturday or it needs to be on, what if for the next 3 months you said, I'm going to take 1 day of my week and I'm just going to set it aside as a day where I rest. That when somebody says, hey, are you free and available? I say, no, I have an appointment. I need to rest. Or what if you put your phone away on those days and you just resolve, I'm not going to check my email. I'm not going to be on social media. I'm not going to look at the news for hours on end. I'm not going to stream if that's what leads to some of your feelings of being drained. How would 12 days over the next 3 months change your outlook on life? How would it change how you see the world? And additionally, what if on those 12 days, you're like, I'm going to put some rhythms in where I draw a little bit closer to God, that I'm going to make him a priority. We see this throughout Jesus' life. He made rest a priority. It just seems to pop up all the time where Jesus broke away from the crowd. He spent time alone with God. He would retreat and rest and spend time with God. He would retreat and rest and spend time with God. God does not want you to burn out. He wants you to keep going. He wants to speak. But sometimes our lives are so loud, we cannot hear him. So consider helping yourself and rest. I want to invite everybody to do something for a second. If you would just close your eyes, bow your heads. Some of you are here right now and you're thinking, I am so tired. I am exhausted. It just feels like it's a never-ending treadmill. And every time I think the season's about to get a little bit slower, somebody turns the treadmill up. I've been there. It's awful. You're tired. You're burnt out. And I want to pray for you. God, I'm praying right now that for those who are in the room right now who just feel like they cannot keep going, that the challenges of life are draining on them, and they feel like they don't want to keep moving, they don't want to keep going, they're tired, and they're exhausted. I'm praying, God, that you would not just give them the plan, but you would give them the motivation and the energy to rest. But God, that they would find the time to set apart and say, I'm going to slow down. I'm going to turn my phone off, or I'm going to turn Do Not Disturb on. I'm going to back out of the obligations that I shouldn't be in, and I will hold to the ones that I should. God, you are a wise God who knows what we need, and you prescribe us help for health even before we know it. So God, I'm just praying that we would find the ways to rest in you. That God, for those who are in those seasons where honestly they cannot slow down, that you would give them that Isaiah 40:31 energy where they can run but not grow weary. But God, that when they reach the other side of it, that you would give them the opportunity and the time and the wisdom to rest. So God, we know that you think ahead, that you are far beyond our abilities. So God, I just pray that we would trust you in those moments. I pray this in your son, Jesus' name. Amen.